My name is Ana Valenzuela. I'm a professor of marketing at Esade Business School and the director of the research group on marketing, technology, and digital environments. So we are going to be talking about how or can algorithms move our customers, considering that emotional intelligence is the final frontier for marketers and the way to engage with customers in a sustainable way. And for that, I'm going to start by asking Olivia, can algorithms move your customers? And what is the Wallapop experience?
Thank you, Anna. So definitely, algorithms can move customers, and we are seeing this across many brands, and it's just the beginning. The biggest win at the moment is on the content production, on creativity. So creating videos, images, text, and what we are seeing is that like AI-led creatives and human-led creatives are delivering similar results. And of course, one has much lower costs. So we are seeing already much higher ROIs. And what like the big unlock here will be personalization at scale. You could envision a world where every person, like based on all the personal signals, will have their own personal content. And we could be talking about many more tools in AI that are also moving customers. So if you think so, these tools will be available because they are quite affordable. Like it's quite easy to access in terms of understanding them. So I think that performance marketing will be more and more commoditized. Like optimization will be amazing, but not so much a competitive advantage as it was before. So for example, like imagine, I don't know, optimizing Google Ads. You know, you have to do that, but it will not drive, like that's not what will make you win versus a competitor. What really matters is brand. And brand at two levels, like brand as preference for users. So as you can imagine, like how we create emotional connection with them, how we create meaning. So when a user sees different brands, no, they choose the one that they recognize, they trust. But also brand for agents. So brand preference for agents, agent trust. So as we're moving to an agentic commerce, it will be agents that will filter what proposals, what brands to propose you. And brand basically will be a signal, but it will not be so much through storytelling, but through data and through systems. So that's really what I think will make a big difference moving forward.
Now let's move to a different vertical, the vertical of gaming. And here, Salome, in this topic of moving your customers, what are the dimensions in which Candy Crush moves customers?
We are basically creating a creative and playful world for our players. So it's not about moving them from funnel to funnel. It's about creating a world that they genuinely experience in a playful way and they genuinely engage with. A world where they emotionally connect with the joyful world that we are creating. When we look at our world of entertainment and the games, we always think player first. Like, if I were a player, what I would appreciate from my kind of a service. And basically, in that aspect, it's important to value every individual journey that player has. And when it comes to the scaled companies, especially scaled games like Candy Crush Saga, it's hard to balance and bring kind of individuality into a play while you are so much scaled, right? We have millions and millions of players joining the game every single day. So imagine, like, it's hard to say and retain that individual approach. And what we found as a solution is looking at the high-level framework. How would we, like, we are always thinking, how do we create a really simple framework of segmenting the players where they are in their journey. But that should be really, really simple, like high level, because this is a starting point. But then we try to deep dive and create the personalized approach upon that structure, which is quite simple in the beginning. I always say that personalization is a big word, and I guess for like speaking from a CRM perspective, what CRM personalization really means is sending right message to the in the right moment to the right customer, right? Like it sounds so simple, but when you deep dive, it's hard because you have to really identify those high value moments when you will amplify that journey for the individual customer. So when we talk about personalization, it's important to look at the company, service, and the business that you work at or you create, and what is at the core of your product. And in our case, in Candy Crush, the core of the core mechanic of the game is the progression. So what I noticed from CRM perspective is the most important part of the personalization, where players were valued most, was progression-based personalization. So it's not about like delivering any or getting any type of data and sending messages on any type of like personalized context, but it's about identifying what is at the core of your business and what your customers or players value the most.
And Javier, I know you have a different view of personalization that comes across in your book. Can you talk to us about that?
Personalization is something that it's not like 0 to 1. It's not like there is no personalization, it's personalized. There are plenty of degrees and plenty of the middle dots makes no sense unless there is a proper modeling of what kind of data is needed, what kind of context is needed. It's very complicated. It deals with what you call human emotional quotient and the like. It's we contain multitudes, and we are very different people at different contexts. Data travels, context does not travel. There is a lot of subtleties who basically have made for 30 years that the industry has been chasing a rabbit that has not been able to put into a cage. The enter of AI into the picture is that we are going to start doubting if we are interacting with a human or not. And the subtle difference, we are going to put a premium in human interaction and the kind of things that we are going to do with that. And it's going to be extremely important if you are trying to act like a human to let people know you are not a human. Because if not, you are going to go into the creepy valley, and that's even worse than not noticing that you are either a bot or not. So I think that we need to go way, way deeper into what makes some behaviors to look like humans, and what kind of situations, you already mentioned, you're really open to some kind of suggestion, and most of the situations you are not open to suggestions. So I think that definitely there's a lot of work to be done in profiling, a lot of work needs to be done in context mapping, a lot of work needs to be done into separating what's human traffic and what's not human traffic. And for sure, we just need a lot more of details being put into action in order to achieve that holy grail we have been pursuing for decades of mass customization. There's no way you can capture a proper context without involvement. And if you want to get that kind of involvement, you have to put something of what we call a positive exchange. You have to offer something which is needed in order to obtain the kind of real-time data that you need. One of the biggest problems right now with artificial intelligence is that the data travels, but the context does not. And if you are not able to identify which is relevant in terms of context-sensitive things that make the experience either valuable or a failure, you're going to have problems. And if you don't have the mechanics in place in order to capture it in real time, you're going to provide what you think is a satisfactory and personalized experience, and it's going to be a complete failure.
Mm-hmm. When you're trying to implement or embrace AI in organizations, what are the bigger stoppers? And what are the challenges that you find for companies to embrace this organizational change?
So to make those changes is not anymore a technological change. It's a change management. It's an operating system change. Because really companies can have those powerful models. Like they are already available, they will be soon. So like what is difficult is to change how we do the work.
Plenty of tasks which are not particularly easy to perform are extremely easy to perform once you introduce AI, especially regarding data capture, context capture, and mood capture, and all the things that we already mentioned. So I think that we have been talking about this for more than 30 years. I think that right now the technology is more than up to the task of creating that kind of things. I think that the problem is that marketing has not been able to take the strategic torch and being something of a leader that could convince the CEO that they could drive more demand for companies.
Mm-hmm. And that maps directly to what Olivia was saying earlier, that at the end, the core of differentiation is your brand and your brand purpose and your brand value. And the last question to discuss for today goes to Olivia. What is the impact of all of this in terms of consumer welfare?
I think, like, I don't know if you have seen now, Europe to address those issues, just launched some new transparency rules, where, for example, if you make an image with AI, you will have to label it, so people know it's AI-led. So this is how regulation is trying to solve for this. I think, and I think Sergio Bastardas was highlighting this before, we shouldn't forget the power of innovation for good that AI has, no? And it's so important that regulation really helps on those points on dignity, autonomy of users, no?
Well, I mean, regulation definitely is something that will be necessary, particularly towards vulnerable consumers. In the psychology of technology communities, there's a lot being said about dehumanizing, particularly AI companions, when they are interacting with vulnerable consumers. That means children. But what my research talks about is more how, when we summarize our decision process into a technology system, we are basically constraining our consumer experiences in what this system can understand. I don't know if any of you in this class remembers when we used to go to the video store. Some of you may not remember. It was a great event. You would maybe go with some idea of what your preferences were, based most probably on your past behavior. This is what AI systems do now. But there would be random shocks. The video store manager, which was always someone very quirky, would give you some suggestions. You would meet your neighbors. You would meet just someone in the store that would point you into a different options. And that would create serendipity, the possibility of encountering pleasurable surprises. That is now constrained because AI systems do not necessarily allow for it. And the proposal of this research is that the competitive advantage comes from companies understanding those constraints and trying to go beyond them to actually expand even more the consumer experience. And I believe this is all for today. This is all the time we have. Thank you so much, and enjoy the Esade stage even more. Bye.